When a young girl is lost deep in the heart of a vast jungle, she collapses in exhaustion near a riverbank. As she begins to drift into unconsciousness, the ground trembles beneath her. A massive elephant, its tusks gleaming under the sunlight, emerges from the trees. It lets out a deep, rumbling call, one that shakes the very air around them. The girl, barely able to keep her eyes open, watches as the elephant approaches. Instead of fear, an odd sense of comfort washes over her. Then, something extraordinary happens. The elephant reaches out its trunk and gently touches her arm, as if checking if she is still alive. It rumbles softly, its deep eyes scanning her weak form. The girl, too tired to react, simply stares back. The elephant lowers itself, its massive ears flapping as if in thought. Then, with surprising gentleness, it hooks its trunk around her waist and lifts her onto its back. The journey that follows will change both their lives forever. As the elephant carried the girl through the dense jungle, her small fingers clutched at the coarse hairs on its back. Her eyelids were heavy, her body weak, but the gentle sway of the enormous creature beneath her gave her a strange sense of security. The elephant moved slowly, carefully navigating through the thick foliage, using its trunk to push away low-hanging branches. The girl, though weak, noticed something strange. This wasn't a wild, aimless march. The elephant seemed to have a purpose. Where was it taking her? She tried to remember how she had gotten lost. She had been with a group, her parents, a guide, and a few other tourists. They had come to see the wonders of the jungle, to experience the beauty of nature up close. But somehow, in the excitement of taking pictures and wandering just a little too far from the path, she had become separated from the others. She had called out, screamed even, but her voice had been swallowed by the jungle's endless sounds, birds chirping, insects buzzing, trees rustling in the wind. She had run in what she thought was the right direction, but the jungle was a maze, and panic had clouded her mind. Now, she was here, alone with this giant animal, being carried further and further into the unknown, a guardian of the jungle. As the elephant moved through the jungle, other animals watched curiously. A group of monkeys swung through the trees, chattering in excitement at the unusual sight of a human child riding an elephant. A brightly colored parrot let out a sharp squawk and flapped away, startled. But the elephant paid them no mind. It was focused. Suddenly, the sound of water rushing reached the girl's ears. She weakly turned her head and saw a river cutting through the jungle, its waters sparkling under the patches of sunlight breaking through the thick canopy. The elephant stopped at the riverbank and knelt down, gently lowering the girl to the ground. Confused, she looked up at the massive creature, her body still weak but her mind racing. Why had it brought her here? Then, the elephant did something astonishing. It dipped its trunk into the water and sprayed a fine mist over her, cooling her feverish skin. It did this several times as if trying to revive her. Then, it turned its attention to the trees, using its trunk to pull down some low-hanging fruit. With surprising delicacy, it placed the fruit beside her. The girl's stomach growled at the sight. She had no idea how long it had been since she had last eaten, but now that the food was in front of her, hunger took over. She grabbed the fruit and bit into it, the sweet juice flooding her mouth. The elephant watched, its large ears flapping slowly. She looked up at it, meeting its wise, dark eyes. "You're helping me," she whispered, her voice hoarse. The elephant rumbled in response, a deep, soothing sound that vibrated through the ground. For the first time since she had gotten lost, she didn't feel afraid. A bond formed in the wild as the sun began to set. The girl leaned against the elephant's massive leg, her body finally feeling some relief. The cool air of the evening settled in, and fireflies began to appear, their tiny glowing bodies dancing around them. The elephant stood beside her like a silent guardian, occasionally lifting its trunk to sniff the air, always alert, always watching. She couldn't help but wonder, why was this elephant protecting her? She had heard stories before about elephants and their incredible memories, their intelligence, their deep emotional connections. But to experience it firsthand, to feel the kindness of this enormous creature, was something she could never have imagined. Somewhere out there, her parents were looking for her. She had to believe that. But until then, she wasn't alone. The elephant had made sure of that. The girl didn't know how long she had been in the jungle. Hours? A full day? Time felt strange here, swallowed up by the endless sea of green. The sky above had shifted from golden hues to the deep navy of night, and the sounds of the jungle had changed too. Crickets chirped in a rhythmic chorus. Distant hoots and growls reminded her that she wasn't alone in this wilderness. But she wasn't scared anymore. The elephant remained by her side, a towering presence that seemed to ward off any danger. Occasionally, it would let out a deep, low rumble, and she felt the vibrations in her chest, as if the elephant were speaking to her in a language only it understood. She leaned her head against its rough skin. "Are you my guardian angel?" she murmured sleepily. The elephant gave a slow blink, its long lashes brushing against its wrinkled skin. The girl sighed, exhaustion overtaking her. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for now, she felt safe. She closed her eyes and let sleep take her. Whispers in the jungle morning came gently, with beams of sunlight piercing through the thick jungle canopy. The girl stirred, feeling the warmth of the sun on her face. The elephant was already awake, standing a few feet away, its trunk raised slightly as if testing the air. Something was different. A distant sound floated through the trees, a human voice. The girl's heart leaped. Was it her parents? The search team? She scrambled to her feet, hope igniting in her chest. "Hello?" she called out, her voice cracking from thirst. The elephant's ears flared, and it turned its head slightly. Then, without warning, it began walking away from the river, back into the thick jungle. The girl hesitated. Should she follow the sound of people, or stay with the elephant? But before she could decide, the elephant paused and turned back to her. Then, it did something incredible. It lifted its trunk and pointed, not towards the sound of the humans, but in another direction. The girl frowned. "What are you trying to tell me?" The elephant rumbled softly, then nudged her gently with its trunk, urging her forward. She hesitated for only a moment before trusting the giant's wisdom. If it had protected her this far, maybe it knew something she didn't. She followed. The hidden path the elephant led her deeper into the jungle, away from the distant voices. The girl began to worry. What if she was making a mistake? What if her rescuers were back there, calling her name? But then she saw it. Through the thick foliage, a small clearing appeared. In the center stood an old wooden structure, barely a hut, more like a makeshift shelter. Smoke curled up from a small fire pit. And sitting beside the fire was a man. He was old, with a weathered face and kind eyes. He looked up in surprise as the elephant stepped forward, the girl at its side. For a moment, there was only silence. Then, the man stood and whispered something in a language the girl didn't understand. The elephant responded with a soft, rumbling sound. Tears welled in the girl's eyes. She didn't know who this man was, but somehow she knew the elephant had led her to safety. The man stepped forward, gently placing a hand on the elephant's massive head. He then looked at the girl and smiled. "You are safe now," he said in broken English. "The jungle watches over those who respect it." The girl stood frozen, her mind racing. The old man's voice was calm, but there was something in his eyes, something ancient, like he knew more than he was letting on. The elephant let out a deep exhale, then settled onto the ground, folding its massive legs beneath it. It seemed at ease. The man gestured for the girl to sit by the fire. You live here?" she asked hesitantly, her voice hoarse from thirst. The old man nodded, stirring a pot of something over the fire. "For many years," he said simply. "Drink." He handed her a small wooden cup filled with warm liquid. It smelled earthy, with hints of spice. The girl hesitated, then took a sip. Warmth spread through her, easing the tension in her muscles. The man turned to the elephant and spoke again in that unfamiliar language. The elephant responded with another deep rumble, almost like they were having a conversation. Finally, the man looked back at her. "You were lost," he said, "but your guardian brought you here." The girl glanced at the elephant. "Guardian?" The man nodded. "This one is special. Not like the others. It remembers." She frowned. "Remembers what?" The old man poked at the fire, sending sparks into the air. "A promise. A story older than time. The jungle night was alive with sounds. The rustling of unseen creatures, the distant hoot of an owl, the crackling of the fire." The girl sat, listening as the old man spoke. "A long time ago," he said, "there was a little girl, much like you. She lived near the jungle with her family. One day she wandered too far and got lost." The girl's heart pounded. "What happened to her?" The old man's eyes gleamed. "She was afraid, just like you. But an elephant found her, a young one, not yet fully grown. It led her to safety, carrying her on its back through the jungle." He paused, looking at the massive creature resting beside them. The girl made a promise that day, he continued. She swore that if she ever saw the elephant again, she would protect it as it had protected her. The girl frowned. But that was a long time ago. How could this be the same elephant? Elephants never forget. She turned to the massive creature, watching as it slowly blinked its wise, dark eye. Could it be? She whispered. The elephant reached out its trunk, brushing gently against her shoulder, and in that moment, she felt it. A connection, something deep, something ancient. Somehow, in a way she couldn't explain, she knew. This was not their first meeting.